Where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Get down! Baltimore!
What are they giving?
Everything out of me. They gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that.
All right, welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown podcast. It is Friday, Wednesday, or not Wednesday. It is Wednesday as we record this, but as you're listening to this, it's Friday. Nailed it. April the 15th, and I was scrambling there because I pulled up my calendar. I didn't know the exact day that Friday was going to fall on, but it's Friday, April the 15th, and we are recording this ahead of time because you're listening to another Beatdown Big Board episode. My name is Jake Luke, and I am joined on my screen by two handsome young lads. One of the handsome young lads that usually does this show, Spencer Nathaniel Schultz, is vacationing in South Carolina, so we didn't want to bother him while him and Tupac gallivant around, Myrtle Beach or wherever the fuck they are. It's Cole Jackson to my right on the screen here, and then Zeeg Batman just below me. How's it going, fellas?
I'm rocking out tonight, man. I'm so excited.
Corners are boring. I don't know why I'm here. I'm pumped. I'm just pumped I get to talk ball with you guys. So I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
I'll find a plane ticket to Canada, I swear.
You're going to need an ice pick and some snowshoes. So,
I think I have one of those.
Already getting some heat here between you two, and Cole, you're very much not a cornerback guy, but you know your football just in general. You're always good to have on these airwaves. So I wanted to ask you one in Spenny's absence, and then Zach, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and the fact that you're right with the site now, your affinity for corners. What's the deal, man? Why are you here with us right now?
The corner thing just comes from I was never lucky enough to play down a professional football in high school in my life.
Neither.
My mom was a little too protective, and at the time I was 5'0", weighing absolutely nothing, and she said that they might get confused and use me as the ball was her go-to line. So I never played any, but I loved watching football from the moment I was born, and whenever I played on the street, cornerback was fun. I enjoyed locking guys up. It's a bit of a perfectionist position, so that's where I throw a lot of my energy into. And as far as writing for the site, I have you to thank for that, and it's been really fun so far, and I'm really excited to keep putting out content for you guys.
Well, glad to hear that. And it's going to be a jam-packed episode. Before we got going here, we're talking through a little bit about some of these prospects. I was like, I watched like 7 guys, and Cole's like, I've done my homework a little bit. You're like, I got like, a list of 15 or so guys that I'm ready to chop up. So, we'll see how long it goes. We're recording after this as well for the live show. The episode's going to release Wednesday night. So, I guess without any further, faffing about, let's get into it. And guys, what a class for corners. And I keep saying that it's a good year to need X, it's a good year to need Y, and it's like the Ravens have positions of need at edge, at offensive line, which we've already done both of those. Good year to need those positions. Good year to need cornerbacks, and a lot of heavy hitters at the top here. Cole, who are some of the guys that jumped out right away to you, and what do you think about this class on the just a general sense?
Yeah, I think this is one of the top. I want to say 7-8 guys are super intriguing, especially some guys that seem to have some true versatility to them, which I think will really benefit the Ravens because, they're in an interesting spot with Marlon Humphrey. I don't know if you guys saw it in Jeff Zerubik's write-up the other day, but he kind of said, people in the castle see Humphrey's best position, not his only or true position, his best position as a slot corner. And I think you get that kind of interesting dynamic with Humphrey where he can do a little bit inside, a little bit outside, and he can kind of move where you need to put him. So that's kind of interesting in a draft context because, if say he was an outside exclusive, well, the Ravens are probably looking for a slot corner, that can come in and start, and then they'd be looking for depth at the outside corner spot. But now they can kind of benefit off some of these versatile guys. So, the guy that I think the Ravens maybe had a realistic shot at that I don't think they do anymore has to be Derek Stingley. He just seemed to answer all those injury concerns. Re-injury occurrences are obviously going to be on teams' minds, so he could still drop a bit. But the fact that obviously he's going to be ready for week 1, he participated in his pro day, tested extremely well. But Stingley is just a guy that, what a weird, polarizing prospect. 2019, freshman, playing on a national championship team, shut down corner, played absurd. The tape's really good. And then you just don't get much tape thereafter because of the injuries in 2020 and 2021. But, really interesting skill set. I'll let Zach dive into some of the more nuance, but he looked like one of those versatile guys where I think, he's probably going to be an outside corner because they're, a little bit harder to find those true outside shutdown corners, but he had a skill set to me that would play well inside. The only concern was maybe a little bit of issues around some tackling concerns, but that's almost every cornerback ever. It seems so it's not a big deal there, but really nice inside outside releases, fluid runner. His hips are like jelly. He can just kind of move and mirror guys and play well in coverage. So, I really did think the Ravens were going to have that shot at Derek Stingley. I think he might have come off the board a little bit by answering the injury piece in terms of being ready for week 1 with his pro day.
Yeah, I think he's a guy who at the start of this process was at the top of everyone's list. And then to your point, reality gets in the way a little bit. He's played, I think, 10 years in the last 2 games total. You might have already mentioned that. But, yeah, for me, I wrote kind of ideal size and frame for prototype quarterback, even for that height, plays above the rim and hung in to beat the SEC at the best they had to offer in the aerial game. I wrote best jumper at a position that is very good to hold that distinction. Zeke, what do you think so far on Derek Stingley? Where is he for you?
He's cornerback 1, far and away. People can say what they want about the 2020 and the 2021 tape. If his 21 tape is a down year for him, his down year is better than most average NFL cornerbacks' good years. He's got probably some of the best feet I've seen since I started watching guys, which only 2 to 3 years, but there's been some pretty good corners that have come out the last couple of years. Cole, you said it best. His hips are jelly. It looks like he doesn't even have hip bones the way he flips. He just kind of morphs from one spot into the other. His ball skills are insane. He wins 50-50 jump balls like he's a wide receiver. It shouldn't happen. And Jake, I like what you said about his heights. I start to get iffy when corners are getting above that 6'2", 6'3" range, because once you're there, it's a lot harder to keep your hips lower. You're taller. It takes a lot more conscious effort, a lot more physical talent to be able to stay low, which helps with flipping your hips. And he's at that perfect 6 foot area where it's really natural for him to flip hips. But he's not so short where it's impeding his game. He's a perfect man corner. He's got great zone instincts. As far as the tackling, this is as deep as this corner class is. There is a lot of corners that struggle with tackling in this class. So no matter where you look, you're gonna find problems with that.
Yeah, definitely. And he's going to be, I think, one of the topics for a trade up, which people have been talking about a lot. Ravens have all these picks. If they, feel like they need to jump up and get into striking distance to get a guy like this, he's certainly going to be one of those guys. And I think it's more realistic to go up and get him than for somebody like a Thibodeau potentially, or, even some of these other better prospects. So yeah, he's certainly going to be in the mix, as are some of these other guys that we can kind of run through here. Ahmad Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati at 6'2", 188. I have him as a top 15 pick. I wrote love the length, and I'm sure the Ravens will too. Also looked like he bulked up year over year, which could bode well for a team if they want him to continue to do so with that 188 size. I said the length translates to long speed and deliberate speed as well. Against Alabama, there were multiple plays where you step for step with Jamison Williams, who didn't make any significant plays to Sauce's side of the field, which is a big deal, I think. I wrote, doesn't take plays off. I wanted to see maybe some more examples of his short area quickness being a little bit, kind of a little more dialed in, but I think his profile size-wise would maybe not be conducive to that, but I don't know. Super feisty, a shit talker. I love him. I was a little bit concerned about the cool name bias. There's definitely a little bit of that going on. We got to calm down with the
He's no Smoke Monday.
It's a little, you got to get your radar up on
tier 1.
Yeah, but it's, Sauce Gardner. What do we got, guys?
Cole, you want to start first?
Yeah, I mean, I said this when I watched him. He's boring, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing. He just didn't get a lot of targets. I think he had 31 targets last year. So that's always tough for me. I'm not a go-to corner evaluator. So some of the stuff that people can watch when they're not being targeted is just not for me. I get bored. No, he kind of has the complete package, I find. He's not as fluid or as natural of a mover as Derek Stingley is, but he's played a little bit more physical, but still moved, well enough. It's not that he wasn't a good mover. I think that just speaks to how good of a mover Stingley is. So, he's kind of built like your prototypical shutdown corner. So I that paired with the athleticism that he possesses, the aggressiveness, he just checks all the boxes for me. So he's going to probably end up going, I'd say probably top 10, and he'll be probably outside of the Ravens shop, but does a lot of things well. It just was one of those guys where he erased half of the boundary because no one wanted to throw the ball at him.
Yeah, Sauce was a weird watch for me. I mentioned earlier about the height. He is one of those guys that's at 6'3", and you can tell when you watch it, he definitely struggles with his hips sometimes, but it really, again, doesn't impede his game, but it's definitely something you can notice every now and then. His length allows for insane recoveries. He's able to just, if he loses some distance on a hip flip, he's 2 strides, which for him is like jumping over a mountain. He's 2 strides in, and he's right there. His arms are able to get into the play. He's just, again, not having any targets. It's weird to see what kind of corner he is. I had to talk with Spencer for a long time about it because I was confused. And the biggest thing I came away with it is I just try not to overthink him. He's got good recoveries. He knows how to attack the ball. For as long as he was in college, offensive coordinators and quarterbacks avoided him. They didn't want to target him, and that's got to mean something.
Yeah, it's and I think to your point there, I think there's some stuff with him and with another guy that we're going to talk about, Kobe Bryant, where it's just it feels like he's a Luke Fickell guy, and he just has stuff that you can't coach. Luke Fickell likes those guys. So, yeah, Ravens fans love him. I love him too. I think he's very much in play at 14. I think he probably has a chance to go earlier than that, just because I think teams have a tendency to fall in love with traits. Giant.
I think it.
Go ahead.
No, I full well expect him to be gone within the top 8. I think one of these guys is just going to fall in love with the unique traits that he has that you just don't see very often in a corner, and he's going to go really, really early.
Yeah, I could see it.
Cornerback 3 for me.
I could also see somebody saying okay, we're going to gamble on Stingley instead of that. And for whatever reason, needs are going to push him down to where they're in striking distance for the Ravens. So a lot of scenarios to consider, but I know you love another guy who's probably going to be in the mix there. Maybe we'll certainly see, because there's been some conflicting reports about how much the NFL actually loves this guy versus the media. But Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson, I'm calling him Andy Booth. We're going to go with
Andy. I like it.
What do you like about Andy Booth there, bud?
Everything. He's my perfect corner. He's the guy that if I'm going on Madden, he's the guy that I'm making on Madden. He's my creative player. He's made in the laboratory.
There's a lot about you that you don't be a quarterback and actually try to have fun with the game. You're just yeah, sit on an island by myself and not actually do anything.
Back when they were doing the Rising Star or whatever the mode was called, where you got to play whatever position, I was playing corner a lot.
Fair enough.
No, his hips are fantastic. His footwork is fantastic. His press jams are almost perfect. Of course, he like every now and then will lock his hips with a bad press. That's another thing I forgot to mention with Stingley. Stingley's presses are perfect. He never locks his hips by overextending. But Booth, just the biggest thing that stood out to me was violence. He's Michael Myers running around with a knife, just ready to take on everybody. He menace at the
character concerns.
Menace at the line of scrimmage, blows up screens, blows up run plays. Once one of the things, like you can tell the corners that are playing the run because they're supposed to. They're there, the run's heading at them. He wants to be a part of it. He is running halfway across the field, trying to just take down anybody that has the ball, and it's so much fun to watch. He's my cornerback too. I think in 5 years, we're looking back, and he's got a very real shot at being the best quarterback out of this class. My comp for him is Marlon Humphrey, and I think that says enough.
Cole, what do you think?
I've had that.
It's actually a kind of a low-key good one. I don't think there's many people saying that. But I kind of like it. I think the biggest thing I don't know what it is about Clemson defense. Every time I was watching O-line, I would get them against Clemson. So there's just abundance of Clemson tape out there, apparently. So one game that he popped to me was when I was watching Ike Ekwonu, and there is a play in that game where it's a wide receiver screen to the defensive left formation, and Ike pulls to go block the DB, which is Andrew Booth. And I mean, he popped Booth, and Booth went flying into the sideline. But to Booth's credit, there was zero business decision being made in this game in that rep. He saw Ike Ekwonu, and he did not care that it was Ike Ekwonu coming at him. And he actually made in the way a coach would look at that play, he actually made a good play because he forced the run back inside. And he did get kind of popped, and he ended up on the ground, but he actually did like this weird sliding motion that ended up forcing the runner back in. It was weird. But he's just one of those guys who's a little bit sick in the head. As our buddy Spencer likes to say, he just reminds me of a sick in the head individual.
He's I've made this comparison before, but he's Joaquin Phoenix in The Master. Maybe post-traumatic stuff going on there. Limbs flailing everywhere. He's a fun watch. He's feisty. It's the attitude to be with him. Like you guys have been saying, he feels like a dude that belongs on an NFL.
He screams Raven to me. Like
Raven.
When you ask who's a Ravens corner in this draft, I just keep saying Andrew Booth.
The most Raven corner in this draft is.
And it feels like the aerial, like the pick against Virginia. Like he's a human highlight reel. Like he's probably the most. You talked about Sauce being a boring watch. He's a fun watch through.
He's a fun watch. And yeah, that game he's floating. It reminded me of Talladega Nights when the car's upside down and he's like, I'm flying through the air right now. This is not good. I just felt that was like Andrew Booth was floating in midair. Looked like Jackie Moon going for the first alley-oop in ABA history. So I'm really high on him. He's probably going to be, I'd say CB3, top 3 corner makes perfect sense to me. The big concerns is what do you do with the injuries concerns here? Missed games with a number of injuries. I think that's kind of where teams came off of him. I try and pay attention to. I wouldn't say what national people say because there's some national people that I don't really care what they say. But when it's a guy like DJ or a guy like Brugler, I try and really listen because they hear stuff. And as the draft process goes on, they'll kind of put little, tidbits and podcasts here and there. And, Brugler said it about 3 weeks ago that, there's teams that I think you said it up front, Jake, like there's some teams that are lower on him than the media. And he specifically referenced the injury thing. So, I don't know what that means. We don't have access to his medicals. But in terms of the player on tape, the athlete, even though we didn't get to see him test, the only concern I had in his game was his long speed. That's why I wanted to see his 40, which ironically was the concern of Marlon Humphrey coming out of Alabama. People talked about his long speed, the big plays, big deep plays, that blah, blah, blah. So that was the only thing. I just wanted to see the 40 time to be like, okay, he's got the long speed, check the box, move on. Because I wouldn't say it was a deep concern, but it was, you got to try and find some critique somewhere. So that's something that popped out to me, but screams Raven, physical. If you went out and you got a Andrew Booth at 14 and a George Pickens at 45, you got a sick in the head team.
And you talk about sick in the head. I mean, Marlon Humphrey, what better comparison than that? The Patrick of the NFL, Marlon.
As long as he doesn't bring shitty takes with him, I'm cool with it.
He's my thing is that he's Marlon Humphrey without the awful Twitter takes, or at least I hope.
Listen,
I can't do two of them.
So I'm not gambling on that quite yet.
I can't do two of them.
You get him in a room with an impressionable young man in the room with Marlon Humphrey, and a very rich Marlon Humphrey at that.
I'm just pissed Marlon Humphrey came to Canada and didn't call me. I'm upset about that. He said he was in Toronto last week, and I was like, bro, I'm like 4 hours from there. And we'll stick with like the offensive linemen and the blocking tight ends. They'll be. Yeah. You need a good blocking tight end. They'll meet up with me for sure.
Okay, so that's Andy Booth. It gets a little crowded here in the next tier of guys that are still really good, still like first round talents. I'm looking at Kaiir Elam and Trent McDuffie specifically. Do you guys have a preference between those two you'd like to talk about first?
Kaiir Elam.
What do you got?
This is gonna upset a lot of people. I've for a long time, and I'm probably back on it. I've had Elam above Gardner for a while. I think he's more technically. Elam is probably the most technically sound corner in this class. Like every rep is textbook. It's what you want your young corners to do. His every rep stance is so low it looks like he's ready to go to the bathroom. His head is at a guy's chest pad when he's lined up in press. He is ready to do everything. His feet at the line of scrimmage are so calm. I was talking with at Late Round Corner on Twitter. A lot of guys know him as Chibs. We were talking. I want to see training camp battles with Bateman's releases versus Elam's feet at the line of scrimmage, because that would shatter the earth. Elam is so patient at the line of scrimmage. He never overextends his hands. He doesn't react violently in a way that sacrifices his hips. He's his only issue I've got is that he lacks a little bit of long speed. He's not great at the top of routes. He'd get a bit grabby. But Gardner has that same problem. Not the long speed, but being grabby at the top. Gardner had a lot of grabby problems, whether he was called for him or not. You can see him on film. No, I love Elam. Elam is the most technical corner. If there's a corner with a better foundation in this class, you're not going to find it.
Which is very good for a guy that's 6'2". I mean, like, you don't owe it to your point about like the height, having things, you can get a little out of your skis with your technique. It doesn't, to your point, I didn't see that with him at all. And yeah,
it's because he sits himself so low every time. It's a conscious effort for him. That's why you can tell.
The squatty potty point you made there. He's long, strong, down to get the friction on. I wrote Ravens body type at outside corner to a T. Yeah. Only concerns I had, I didn't think he had the horses in the back in the run game, which that's, you can kind of take that or leave that with corners. But I do think that's kind of an effort thing. So it's a little bit of a thing that I take seriously. But some issues with tackling, but. Yeah, other than that, I like him just as much as you. Only problem is he will never be a Raven because of his last name and his familial.
Oh, my Lord.
You took away my analysis. Last name draft-based analysis is not for me. I was getting frustrated on the timeline today when I was reading that. I won't speak too much to Elam. I only watched one game on him. Zach kind of covered most of this, so I won't hold this up. But first of all, don't care what his last name is; doesn't impact me. I think it, I definitely see the technical pieces there. I think Zach covered it, so let's not be repetitive. Let's just keep it rolling.
Which is unfortunate with the last name thing, because as I pointed out, the New York Jets took I think William Golston off their board in 2013 because they drafted Vernon Golston.
That's unbelievable to me. Like it's real, so I'm not saying it's not, but I just can't believe it. Like,
think about how these NFL teams work. Like, yeah, they're smart guys and like X, Y, and Z, but like when you really get down to it, they're just as much meatheads as the rest of us. And like,
bunch of dudes in a room. They're just a bunch of dudes in a room.
Yeah, they just got a dip in their lip, and they're talking about like, his girlfriend's ugly, and that means he's not confident in himself. Shout out to Moneyball, but yeah, that's sometimes it really does come down to that stuff. I don't expect Eric Costa to seriously consider it, but like, brother, if you need a tiebreaker, then you're not.
All I'm gonna say is
the next guy that we were gonna get into might need a tiebreaker because I really like Trent McDuffie. He's a guy that really popped to me when I joined. It was funny when I joined the Ravens podcast. I got this message and it was like we're gonna talk about these guys, and I was like looking through and I was like, okay, watch them. Then I got to like 4 corners and I was like, oh God, I gotta watch corners tonight. Recording tomorrow, and I was up till 3 a.m. watching cornerbacks, which is probably why I have my deep-seated anger. But McDuffie was a really interesting guy. I found Washington just asked him to do more limited stuff. It seemed like they were in cover 3 a lot, where he's kind of off ball. So it's kind of hard to assess some of those pieces that you want to see. But in terms of the fluidity, the athleticism, the lateral movement. I don't think he was asked to do it a lot, but I think the ability's there, and that was enough for me. I think people are going to rag on his arm length. You guys know how I operate. I don't give a shit. But he seems physical. I think he has the necessary lateral ability, the necessary aggressiveness to translate well to being in press situations. And again, he gives me that type of versatile skill set where I think he can do some work in the slot. I think he can do some work out wide. I think he can play man. I think he can play zone. Seems like a very, very, very versatile cat.
Yeah, and I think you made a couple of my points there. It reminds me of Booth a little bit where I said energy is the first thing that pops off the screen to me. A pass to the open press situations, can flip his hips to mirror guys on a dime. And he can get beat off the line here and there, but he'll mirror and match right up on against guys who do get past him in recovery mode. And my main thing with him, I think you touched on this a little bit, was that there's a clear tenacity and a clear want from him that I think the Ravens will love. So Zach, what do you got on Trent McDuffie?
I love McDuffie. I think he definitely best transitions into the NFL as a slot corner, but I definitely think you could play him on the outside without really worrying about it. You're not going to pair him up against like a Jamar Chase, obviously, but against your average 2-3 wide receiver in the NFL, you're going to put him on there and you're going to feel comfortable. I definitely think he's got insane slot ability in the NFL. He's going to translate really well to there. One of the better tackling corners in this class, along with probably the next guy I assume we're going to talk about. Definitely, Cole mentioned it with the man zone versatility. He's got a ton of that. Also, just like really smart guy, like understands that he's got some limitations athletically and physically, and he knows how to beat it. Like, I know that I was listening to a podcast somewhere, and apparently he mentioned, I'm talking about McDuffie. McDuffie mentioned that none of the NFL guys had asked him about like his arm length or were worried about it or anything. So that shows me they don't care about his arm length. They're well aware of what he can do despite the short arms. So I don't think that's gonna limit his thing at all. I expect him to go middle of the first round, and if he goes at 14 to the Ravens, I'm not upset. Wouldn't be my first pick at 14, but talented enough to definitely go there.
Fair enough. Yeah. So there's another guy that we like for, the first round. Maybe you talk about some of these guys, maybe it would be in a trade back scenario with maybe an Elam or something like that. You move back, maybe you move up for some of these guys. But I think for me, that kind of exhausts my first round options. And then I've only got a couple guys outside of the first round because this is just such a position of need, I think. And first round just feels like such a, it certainly could happen, if not day 2. And we'll see what happens with some of these guys that we've already talked about. But as far as guys that I've left, I've got Kobe Bryant, Cincinnati, Roger McCreary, Auburn, Zion McCollum, Sam Houston State. Zach, who's standing out to you in that list?
I disagree with you. I think McCreary's a bona fide first round talent. I expect him to go anywhere from late teens to he could definitely go in the second round, but I think he's a first round talent.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that way too, because like I see him as a good player. I see him as like a top of the second round type guy, but like there's so many corners that I expect to go in the first that I think that's going to push him down.
Where are we putting Kyler Gordon in this? Because that's the name.
Kyler Gordon is I have some opinions on Kyler Gordon that Ravens Twitter doesn't agree with me on.
Hey, give me your Kyler Gordon takes. I haven't watched him.
I think Kyler Gordon is the safest pick possible out of these corners, and I don't mean that in a good way. If you draft Kyler Gordon, you know exactly what you're getting. You're getting a run blitzing slot corner with limited coverage ability who's really not going to do much for you.
Interesting.
I don't see a lot of fundamental stuff that I really love watching him cover guys. I think he's definitely aggressive at the line of scrimmage. He knows how to stop the run. He's okay blitzer. He's not a man coverage corner. Definitely, I don't think would fit in with the Ravens. I don't understand where the Kyler Gordon at 45 obsession began. I'm not a fan.
Cold.
I
76,
love Kyler Gordon.
What's your rebuttal?
He really popped to me when I was watching McDuffie. Again, early morning hours on that fateful Tuesday night. But
no sleep was getting to you.
Yeah, apparently. I thought he definitely looks like more of a slot skill set, but I think he has enough athletic ability and length to play on the outside as well. Again, he kind of reminds me of that inside-outside skill set. And what I really liked about him is I thought he had pretty good ball skills. He looked to do better in zone situations, but again, is that just what he's asked to do in Washington where they're using a ton of zone coverages? But I thought he was a pretty fluid mover. I did write down that I thought his instincts were a little bit subpar, so I think that's where some of the concerns may come from. I thought he had good ball skills, but I guess what was clicking was his play speed to me, and it wasn't athletic ability, it was the mental processing aspect of play speed. So when I kind of saw that, that's always going to worry people with corners, I think, because the game just gets so much faster at the next level. So how's that mental processing transition going to go? So I definitely see that pop out. But in terms of, athletic ability, I thought he was pretty good, short area quickness. And again, I think he kind of brings that inside-outside skill set that I think the Ravens could covet looking for a corner in this draft.
Interesting. So Kyler Gordon, a little bit of tension there between these two respected minds here coming to the round table, just duking it out. I love it. So I have nothing on him, but of those other three guys or anyone else niche that you have, who do you want to
like I said, I really like McCrary. McCrary was actually one of the guys that I watched really early on in my process, and I wasn't impressed with. The two games that I watched early on, I was looking for, because a lot of people had said, like, this is probably going to be a slot corner in the NFL, and I was looking for it, and he didn't play with enough, like, violence for me. Like, if I want, like, my slot corners, I want them handsy, I want them up at the line of scrimmage, I want them attacking, and I don't know, I guess I picked two bad games because his Senior Bowl film really made me go, okay, I need to go back and watch some more. He's a really, again, I wouldn't say, like, violent, but he's aggressive at the line of scrimmage, definitely likes to get into it in the run game. Really good hands when it comes to attacking the catch point. Probably has the best overall inside-outside versatility, meaning he can do both at a higher level than most guys can do both. He's not going to be your best outside corner. He's not going to be your best inside guy, but he's going to be the best at doing both.
That's a good way of putting it. And I kind of how I described him was sticky. He wasn't,
I think I have that in my notes right here.
He's just like, he's always there. It's like your little brother. You turn around, it's like you're still here. He's kind of like a receiver shadow. I think another guy that's going to, suffer a little bit in the subpar draft analyst community with the arm length considerations, but didn't seem to be an issue. One of the guys that I think, to flip on Kyler Gordon, I thought he had elite mental processing, and that's how he was so sticky. He has, high enough athletic ability, obviously, to stay with guys, but he just read route concepts so well that I thought he was able to really, stick with guys and be in their back pocket. And then when the ball did come, he had the type of tenacity with the ball in the air to try and make a play on it. I think he led the SEC in PBUs last year, something like that. I don't know where his interceptions were, but he seemed to make quite a few plays on the ball, but just, always there in a guy's back pocket. I think stature and arm length and all those pieces that, NFL teams do care about, as much as I joke about it, will drop him down a little bit. But I think he's just got a hell of a skill set. He seemed to be a better man cover than zone cover. But if you need to put him in the slot and just tell him to stick with a guy, he's going to do it. He's going to do it effectively.
Faced a ton of high-level competition too. Like, a lot of people don't realize how many
He's like
times
the
he
little
played.
kid on the playground that was always getting bullied, but would end up, kind of beating the bully back up. Like, it was kind of weird to see.
Hit on all my strengths that I wrote up. I wrote down pretty much your perfect Tavon Young replacement.
Yeah,
I can see that for sure. I would agree with that.
Yeah, so I like him a lot too.
I love him personally. I really want them to go with an outside corner. We talked about it earlier, I really like Marlon in the slot. I think he thrives in the slot. I'd love to see them adopt the star position that Jalen Ramsey's. I'd love him to see him adopt the star position that Jalen Ramsey's made popular over in LA. I think Marlo would thrive there. So I'd really like to see a couple outside guys come in, but but yeah, McCrary is a great slot option if they want to go that way.
Something funny?
No, sir. Absolutely not.
Nothing in the private chat being said. Okay, so yeah, there's Roger McCrary, and then like I said, I've got
dreams being broken. That's all.
Yeah, a little bit. Got Kobe Bryant and Zion McCollum. Either of those guys that you like? I know both bordering probably on the bigger side for you.
I actually haven't watched any Zion McCollum. I know people have. I know people love him. I haven't been able to find any film on him. I don't know much about him. I'm hoping one of you guys could talk about him.
Yeah, I said so. He's 6'4", 200 from Sam Houston State. Shout out to Colton Cowser. Yeah, it was a weird watch, but I said tremendous size and length for the position. Plays like it. Good long speed. Has the ability to flip his hips and mirror and match more than you might think for his size. I thought he had a good feel for playing the ball in the air. And then, yeah, I mean, kind of the issues that you would expect. He's not super twitched up. That's probably going to hurt him against the faster, more technically gifted NFL receivers. And basically my rundown on him was a physical specimen from an FCS school with potential versatility in the secondary. I see him as a good option for the Ravens at some point on day 2, maybe a little bit later in that respect. Maybe you get a little crazy and start to mess around with some versatility with him as well. Some reps at safety, something like that. I like him.
I was able to find a little bit on him. I think I saw him as a better zone fit than man, and that's just, natural size, length. He's a pretty good athlete. I actually thought the way he would flip his hips and kind of run with guys was pretty impressive for relatively taller corners. So to compare, I didn't think Tariq Woolen, who's also 6'4", former wide receiver, was as fluid with his hip flips. So I thought that was something that really stood out to me. So in that regard, if you want to kind of have him in a zone defense, I think he's going to be able to make a lot of plays on the ball. He had pretty good instincts and a pretty good first step when he was breaking on a guy. So I think he's a guy that, I think pick 110. Why not? Like I think it's a great year to double dip at corner. I would love to double dip, kind of with a second, maybe a first and a fourth, and he'd be a hell of a guy to kind of. The thing I like about that, if you get a guy like some of the ones we've mentioned that can be kind of your day one slot corner and also provide a little bit of versatility, and then you get a guy later like a Zion McCollum that you can develop a little bit where he doesn't need to step in and play, which he shouldn't have to behind those outside corners.
Tarek Brown's one of those late guys I like.
Right. And I think it's kind of like that Anthony Averett situation where I think what really benefited him was having a couple of years on the bench to really kind of develop. And then you saw it all kind of play out this year where he played quite well. So that's kind of my thoughts on Zion McCollum. But yeah, tape's hard to find. Anytime you're dealing with Sam Houston State, it's going to be a little bit tougher.
So I have Kobe Bryant left. The aptly named Kobe Bryant. Zeej, what do you got on this guy, if anything?
I love Kobe Bryant. I mean, it says a lot when you play opposite of Sauce Gardner and you're getting all the targets that he's not receiving. Good man coverage. adept in zone. His back pedal's really smooth. I don't know. There was nothing wrong that I saw with him. He didn't stand out crazy. Like, he's definitely going to be a day 2 guy. But if you throw him in there day 2, pick him day 2, he's going to give you some solid reps for his rookie year. And he'll probably develop into a really, really good number 2 corner eventually.
Cole, anything on this young lad?
I thought that was a really good summary. One thing that popped is him and Sauce kind of had a little bit of swagger, physicality to them, because I thought he liked to kind of mix up, get dirty in the run game, and that's something that really popped when I saw him specifically. And yeah, like I said, Sauce was a boring watch, and this guy was a complete opposite, where he was eating a lot more targets. And yeah, I mean, he's not he's not an elite athlete. He's not, elite processor, but does a little bit of everything really well. Kind of a jack of all trades corner is kind of how I viewed him, with, good length, good size, good speed. Checks a lot of boxes, I guess, is how I'd look at him. And, a lot of people, when you kind of, back in February when we were kind of taking him in mocks, it's like, are you just picking him because his name's Kobe Bryant? And then you kind of put on the tape and get to watch him, and you're like, okay, this guy can play.
Who would ever accuse somebody of analysis being favored towards somebody's name being cool?
Yeah, not me, not this guy.
Bryant, Sauce Gardner. We just love the names here.
It's just a names-based podcast. But,
I think Luke Fickle might love names a little bit too much if we're getting into that. But yeah, I mean, and you guys hit on all the points. And I will say, reading up on some of these media guys, Zierlein, Goodbread, and like some of these other guys, it's like all of these guys are saying were, touting a ton of positivity about his football IQ, about his leadership. Sounds like a real Ravens guy in that respect.
And again, comfortable situation. Going to come in, not going to have to start right away, barring the injury bug, knock on wood. But, just in a position to succeed in Baltimore, in my opinion. It's kind of a funny spot, whereas I think edge defenders are going to come into Baltimore and kind of be expected for production right away. But with the corner room being, so top heavy with Marlon and Peters, it's kind of a nice situation for mid-round corners to end up in, where you're not just learning from guys in front of you. And I think he'd learn really well from like a Marcus Peters, ability to use his size and his length and all that good stuff. So, I think he'd be in a real position to have success in his career if he ended up in Baltimore.
To get as many targets as he did, where you're getting your own share, plus you're getting all of them on Gardner's share, and you're not a day 3 pick where you're getting lit up because you let up so many catches, you got to be at least a little bit good. I think that's the best way. He just doesn't stand out, but he checks every box.
So my list has been exhausted. Cole, do you have anyone that you specifically want to hit on?
I want to hit on a guy that popped to me when I was going through was Cam Taylor-Britt out in Nebraska.
On my list.
Bit of an undersized guy in terms of height and length, but what really was interesting in his measurements is his size. Like I think he was like 200 pounds at 5'10", which is kind of a little bit weird for a corner, but I think he's a pretty souped up athlete, or a well-built, projects as a good outside corner. He just kind of had, again, another guy that I think checks a little bit of everything. He had pretty good functional athleticism. One of the games I watched was 2020 against Penn State, and he saw a lot of Jahan Dotson, who's kind of top 40, top 45, 50 pick in this draft. And he absolutely was all over him in that game. He made a play on him in the red zone that was just nasty. His ability to kind of bend and make a play on the ball in the air was really, really impressive. I thought he was really physical, which kind of pops to me. Again, a guy that I think, projects really well to both press man and zone responsibilities. So he kind of just, again, checked a lot of boxes for me. I think I didn't see a ton of man cover skills in terms
He's
of
gonna be a zone guy.
Yeah, that's where I kind of wanted to get to. Like, he checks a lot of boxes, but if there was a critique, it would be his man skills. Thought he was far better in zone concepts.
if you're looking for another one of those corners that people talk about, oh, maybe he could be a safety. This is one of those guys. He hits like a safety. He loves to lay down the wood. No, I like is it Britt Taylor? No, it's Taylor Britt. I always get it confused. I like Taylor Britt. I think he's really good. The only issue I have with putting him at safety is that he's excellent at using the boundary. He's really good at just kind of cutting guys off in that zone area and using that to his advantage. I think he's going to be a really good corner for somebody. I don't see him exactly as a great Ravens fit, but I loved watching his film.
Very nice. Zach, what other 19 guys do you want to run through here?
There's a couple of the like the round 2 guys that teams are gonna take because they've got the juice. Tariq Woolen really stood out after the combine again. I think he's a very developmental guy. You're gonna need to be patient with him.
Thank you. I think he's getting way too much hype. It's driving me crazy.
When you run like that, you're gonna get the hype, and when you've got the height like him, again, it's that long. I'm worried about it because we know how the Ravens are about their long, tall, fast, underdeveloped corners. We know they love them, so I'm a little worried about it. Round 3, I wouldn't mind it, but people talking about him at 45, no, thank you. I do like him though. I do think eventually he will be a solid corner in the NFL. It's just going to take some time. Same with Alontae Taylor. Another zone guy, but he's got definitely has some press man ability. It's just going to have to be refined a little bit. I think when you stick him in a room with guys like Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, that would certainly help. I like Alontae Taylor. Again, not the best Ravens fit. I mentioned Monteric Brown. I actually was watching a lot of him today. I love Arkansas guys. Arkansas guys always just seem to have a little bit something about them. He can play both man and zone, probably better at zone, but definitely has man skills. He's really aggressive, high IQ, good run defender, just checks a lot of boxes for me. Josh Joby, I believe is it Joby or is it Job?
I said Joby.
I'm pretty sure it's Joby. I'm really high on Josh Joby. I know a lot of guys are probably lower than him. I have him as a early day 2 guy. I think he was supposed to come out last year, right? And people were talking about him like top of the second round last year. I think he's just been pushed down the board right now. But
I just think those Bama guys that come out are that type of, and again, some of this is what Wink did isn't necessarily what Mike McDonald's going to do. So there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment there. But in terms of, seeing a lot of press man behind cover 1, that's what Alabama does with their safety usage. They play a lot of one man down in the, and that's where I see the fit. Again, reminds me of taking an Anthony Averett out of there, even though they're not the same kind of player. He's going to come here. He's going to be able to, kind of develop. If they wanted to replace kind of like a Jimmy Smith skill set, I think that would be, a nice guy that can get up in your kitchen, play aggressive, doesn't have good long speed. I think the concern will be
aggressive and physical, but
I think if guys can get off the line on him, he's going to have I can see him giving up big plays. If he kind of gets beat off the line of scrimmage, I didn't see great recovery speed.
If he gets stacked, he's done.
Yeah. So that's kind of the concern with him. But again, probably talking about like a 3rd, 4th round guy that you're gonna have a little bit of time to develop and work with him. So, but certainly an interesting guy, and I think is a great fit for the Ravens.
And the thing I like about him is I think something that's not being talked about enough. I think he's got inside versatility. I know people talk about his hips being stiff, but I think you give him a year or 2 to learn the slot, and I think he could be a very good slot corner. I think he's got inside-outside versatility that nobody's talking about. And the last guy that I really want to talk about is what I like to call Andy Booth's little brother, Mario Goodrich. He's and then
Clemson too, right?
Clemson, yeah. They played opposite each other, and that's why it's hard for me to not look at him and go, yeah, that's Andrew Booth's little brother. I don't know. I don't know what Clemson's putting in the water for their cornerbacks, but again, another menace at the line of scrimmage, violently takes on wide receiver blocks, will tack tight ends, tacks offensive linemen, loves to blow up runs. Definitely not as good of a overall corner as Andrew Booth, obviously, but has very similar press skills to Andrew Booth. Presses really well. Doesn't have the same speed as Booth. I think he's going to be a little bit slower. I think Booth's a low 4.4 guy like Marlowe, again, where that comp comes out for me. I think you give, if there's a day 3 guy that I love the most to develop here, it's Mario. That's not just because I'm Italian, Cole, so don't even.
He's a me. He's a Mario. He goes down the green pipe. He gets the star. One guy that I'd love to get your opinion on, and I was just on UK Ravens last night. I think it comes out tomorrow. And James Ogden was talking about how high he was on Marcus Jones, and so I hadn't watched Marcus Jones until last night. I only watched a game, and I don't think his role in Houston's defense is what I think you see him as a true slot corner, kind of a Tavon Young replacement at the next level. But I was pretty impressed with his man cover skills. Seemed like a really fluid runner. Again, a kind of guy that was kind of in guys' back pockets pretty consistently. Stood out to me. I forget the receiver he was running behind, but he was legit kind of angling towards where his cut was going to go really frequently, like it was weird. So showed like a really good understanding of where receivers were going and how he could play a step ahead of them. So he's a guy that I wanted to throw out there for kind of some thoughts, because I think if the Ravens are looking for a true slot corner, and I mean this kid's like 5'8", 5'9", so he's small. He's a slot. He's a slot corner. And he's got some punch.
Played a lot of outside in college though.
He did, and that's what I mean. Like, I don't think the player you watched at Houston is the player you're drafting for the NFL. So there's going to be some of that long projection where you're kind of taking, okay, what's his skill set? What did he do on tape? Now let's put him in our framework and get him to do some other things. But I think a lot of his skill sets project really well to what the Ravens might ask him to do in the slot.
He's short and he knows it. He knows how. I think you mentioned that he kind of seemed to know where he wanted to go early. And I think it's because he focuses a lot on the IQ. He knows that he needs to be a step ahead because he's got a smaller margin of error. I like Marcus Jones. His film really excited me. He makes plays. I guess that's just the way to put it. He makes plays.
Very nice. So I guess we fully run through the list then. That's a lot of corner.
Better than my 100 and what did we go, an hour and 45 minutes with my O-line episode?
I got two more things I want to toss out. I'm so much lower on Darion Kendrick than practically anybody else.
Rumor has it he's still running his 40.
I was terrified when I heard that Darion Kendrick. I was terrified when I heard that Darion Kendrick had a visit to Baltimore. I was like, please let the plane land somewhere else.
What's he doing?
And then I think hopefully going there. I'll watch Hollywood run by him all day. No problems. And then I think a guy that's not getting a lot of attention because he kind of fell off the map a little bit, didn't have a great season. Jalen Armour-Davis out of Alabama had, I believe, an injury problem. But I watched a game or two of his because somebody just tossed him out of Twitter to me, and I liked his film. I think he's going to be a flyer and on day 3, maybe even an undrafted guy that a team's going to really fall in love with and probably carve himself a role somewhere.
Very good. So, yeah, to your point there, Cole, the O-line episode was a big, veiny, triumphant bastard. This one is a little more tight, and Zeke was really, going balls to the wall and getting all his guys out there, which is great. But I guess at this point, we have to settle on 4 of them. And I hate to tell you guys, but we have to have Sauce Gardner on this list. If we don't, I'm going to tweet the poll out, and Ravens Twitter is going to absolutely skin me alive. Like, you guys don't even understand. Like, we put these polls out there, and it's always the people that don't listen to the pod that see it. And they're like, oh, no, like this guy, no, that guy. It's like, the fucking podcast. We have a whole rationale behind it. So, yeah. But for my purposes, for my sanity, Sauce Gardner is A, who is B, C, and D.
There's not even a chance they get an opportunity to pick him.
He has to be on the list.
I agree with you. I every time I mention Sauce's name and it's not a highlight, I get yelled at on Twitter.
Okay, wait. I have an experiment. So I think Booth McDuffie, we all agree. Stingley's not falling to the Ravens. We can't do two guys not falling to the Ravens. So, and then I say you put Elam out there and he'll get no votes because of his last name, and I'll laugh. So that's my vote. Zach, what do you got?
I love Elam. I if you put Elam out there, I might throw him a vote despite Booth being there, because I gotta let Elam get at least one.
Two guys go through. So
two guys go through?
Yeah, so it's a bracket, so you get two from each position.
Right.
God, if Gardner's on this list, he's just gonna run away with the poll.
He has to be in it.
I know.
There has to be a 1 seed.
So Gardner, I think you have to put Booth on there.
Okay. A Gardner, B Booth.
C McDuffie.
C McDuffie. I'm good with that.
Deal.
And then I would say either Elam or McCrary.
Let's do Elam then. Just for the memes.
Just for the memes.
Okay. So A Sauce Gardner, B Andy Booth Jr., C Trent McDuffie, not to be confused with OJ McDuffie, and D Kaiir Elam out of Florida. Yes,
I'm putting out my official notice. I think Sauce should be Stingley. I think Stingley's got a better chance of falling because of the injuries. But Ravens Twitter, what?
We're not putting.
The great Led Zeppelin once sang about there's what there is and there's what there should be, and this is just the way that it is. I'm sorry, it's got to be said. So that's that. So great job, fellas. We ran almost an hour here. Very, very good, tight hour of cornerback talk. We are going to be sticking around to record after this a little live episode, which serves as our little discussion podcast of the week. But in the meantime, let's get out of here for this one. So, Cole, where can the listeners find you and all your stuff if they're not already familiar?
At Cole Jackson FB on Twitter, where you can find me dropping a ton of offensive line content and bodying anyone from 105.7. And then you can find me over on my YouTube channel at Two Guys Watching Football for all your offensive line draft needs, as well as some defensive line stuff.
Well, I have a great house down in Key West, Florida. That's definitely not in Ocean City. Zach, where can the people find you and your stuff?
I'm on Twitter at perp_blackveins because I bleed this stuff. Mostly just talking cornerbacks, and every now and then I'll talk about being Italian, and Colo just mentioned that I'm an Italian.
He's a bibbidi boppity, eh?
Yeah. Well, you can
about meatballs.
Jake Luke, that's LOUQUE. Follow the show at Podcast Beatdown, where we're going to be tweeting out the poll. So keep an eye out for that on Twitter some point today on a Friday. You'll get to vote on your favorite prospect.
Not Wednesday.
The top two will make it into the final bracket that we will be running draft week. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Get down! Baltimore!
What are they getting? Everything out of me. They gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that.